What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. No Chad Hastings today riding shotgun with me. It's President's Day, so, I'll work. He sits, he plays, and I'll be here to talk a little football recruiting. We'll talk Texas football. We'll do all those things that you know that we do on a day-to-day basis right here on. Do me a solid, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the page, do all those things, and feel free to jump into the chat. Although I'm not seeing the chat right now on my side of things, so I'm going to try to figure out how to keep an eye on the chat. For now, I would say don't send super chats, because if I can't see them, I don't necessarily want to accept them. Talking Texas football recruiting today. A lot of things that we can get into, though. I have some hot takes on Knights of the Seven Kingdoms that I'm going to get into at some point. No Chad. I don't even know if he's watching that show. I've got some hot takes I'm going to get off my chest, but we'll lead with Texas football. I wrote about this over at my 10 Thoughts on the Weekend, so forgive me if some of this is repetitive if you were on Orange Bloods earlier today or yesterday and read my 10 Thoughts from the weekend. But as we start to transition to and what up, Chris Bunny? What up, Money B? Good to see you guys. I now see the chat, so I'm not flying solo, and I'll make sure that I keep a lookout for you guys throughout the show. If there's ever been a moment where you want to sneak in a football question to me on anything, the solo shows are probably the best time to do it, because Chad and I sometimes say a lot of words. Don't leave room for calls or chats or anything else. But today, a little bit of a different story. So, as I was mentioning, I went into the weekend and I've got Texas football recruiting on the brain. I'm thinking about 2027, which is the current recruiting class. For those of you that haven't caught up to, it's now 2026. It's the 2026 season. This will be the 2027 recruiting class, although most of it signs in December. So maybe it's actually the 2026 recruiting class. That's going to completely screw me up if we start that's what it would be if we just eliminated the February window. It's kind of odd. It's now, don't go down that rabbit hole, Catch. I can see myself literally distracting myself with a random thought there. No, I was just thinking about, when we look at the 2027 recruiting class, there's a couple of things that have been going on right now. One, the Longhorns haven't been uber aggressive. They haven't been. On purpose. On purpose. I can remember, look, they've been out recruited for Kennedy Brown, arguably the best offensive lineman in the state, depending on, and we'll get into a conversation about him and Ishmael Kamara here in a second. But they've kind of conceded some early territory on a guy like Kennedy Brown. And, oh, by the way, offensive line, kind of a big target in the 2027 recruiting class. It's kind of important. We'll get to that in a second. But one of the things I've realized coming out of this last class was that Texas laid out a blueprint for us with what they want to do in recruiting. And to their credit, they really did execute it exactly the way I was told it would be executed. I don't know how much I believed it when I was told. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look and see, but maybe during the summer, it got to a point, maybe even late in the summer, when I had somebody tell me, we've made a philosophical change in the program, and we are going to go get, I don't know if he used the phrase super blue chip. That's my phrase. But we're going to go get 6 to 8 super blue chip kind of guys. We're going to get our guys. And then we're not going to really get down with these dudes that are otherwise going to cost a lot of money that we know aren't going to play right away at Texas. There were some real lessons learned from that number 1 overall 2025 recruiting class. Hard lessons to learn in a lot of ways. But you know what? If you weren't going to win a national championship last year, and that's just not what was in the Texas destiny, then, hey, man, learn as many lessons as you can in one season. And they did. I think they learned a lot from recruiting to how they'll handle on-the-field stuff this season, the portal. I think Texas paid dearly to learn a lot of lessons. But in recruiting, they seem to learn, how do we afford everything that we want to afford? How do we spend money wisely? How do we program ourselves with discipline in this new wave of what college football recruiting is. And the blueprint they laid out was, we're going to go get our guys. And we know who those guys ended up being, right? It's Dia Bell. It's Derek Cooper. It is, James Johnson or Tyler Atkinson or, there were a number of guys that they went out and got that price didn't matter. Price didn't matter with Derek Cooper. Price didn't matter with Atkinson. Didn't matter with Richard Wesley. They were going to get their guys. And in the end, there ended up being 5, 6, 7 guys that they paid a king's ransom for, but they were okay with that. They were okay with that. And on a guy like Derek Cooper, we know that they just basically said, we want you bad. Here's how bad we want you. And for the final 6 months of that kid's recruitment, there were no surprises. Oh, Miami wanted him. The Hurricanes wanted Derek Cooper. But the Hurricanes did not want to pay what Texas was willing to pay Derek Cooper. One of these lessons that we're learning is that Texas is adjusted. They've tweaked their strategies summer by summer. We are getting ready to be into the summer. We're ready to be into the late spring in a few months when these official visits begin. And we're going to start seeing Texas identify who they really want. And it's interesting. You look at the Brock Williams kid, the tight end. One of the things that's being said about that recruitment right now is that Texas might not be the number one team in his recruitment, and he might not end up at Texas. But they got the biggest financial offer on the table for that kid. And while that is not undefeated, Texas has emerged as this school that in high school football recruiting, when they see the guy that they want, they go get him. No excuses. There were no excuses with Atkinson last year. He was kind of deemed the guy above almost anything else in this class that Texas had to have. They went out and got him. And if it meant outpricing other people, because by God, that's who they want, then Texas is comfortable with doing that. And what do we see them do? A lot of their early commitments that were kind of middle-class guys, national top 150, 200, 250, 300. Really good prospects. Texas was like, hey, man, if somebody's going to offer you 250, 300, 500, whatever, you should take that cash. We ain't giving it to you. And kids held out, right? The Max Wrights of the world were like, oh, please, Texas. I'm not asking for a king's ransom, but can we get in the ballpark of what SMU might be thinking? And Texas was like, I don't know if you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, but no, we're not. We're going to pay like 5 or 6 dudes a lot of money. We're not going to pay the rest of you a whole lot of money. So what it does is going to create a recruiting class that's really top heavy. It's going to have the bottom half of the class isn't full of national top 250 guys that look all shiny on the roster and your 24/7 blue chip percentage or whatever. Like that takes a hit. But you know what it allows you to do? It allows you to go into the portal and spend all the money that you want to, because it's not sitting on the bench on a linebacker who can't get on the field, but he's making $500,000 a year. You feel me? So I start thinking about the 2027 recruiting class. And for me, the conversation kind of turns into, who does Texas want? Who do they want? What positions? If they're going to go get 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. And that's kind of it. It almost is the way you have to think of this recruiting class. They want to have, and as a matter of fact, the thing that somebody told me last summer that became a little bit of the rallying cry for what Texas was trying to accomplish in recruiting was our best 8 guys in our recruiting class. We'll take them against anybody else's best 8 guys anywhere. Your best 8 against our best 8. That's how Texas kind of looked at last year's recruiting class. They love their top 8. So now, and it's hard because I'm like watching Jason Sukumel do lots of updates on guys. And, Texas will get commitments from a guy, and I'll look at it through the prism of, does that even matter? Is that kid going to be committed to Texas in 5 months if somebody's offering him $300,000 and Texas is like, you can have a Coke and a smile and a scholarship check, but revenue share not from us? How does that impact things? It will impact things. It makes recruiting hard to watch, hard to follow. It is a little bit like a shell game of sorts now. Sometimes you've got your eyes squarely on the little like peanut under the shell. You can see where it is. And then it's as if when they lift the shell up, there's not even a peanut anymore. It is a walnut. It changed nuts. So what the hell happened? I saw a peanut go in. It's a different nut altogether. That's what recruiting is like now in 2027. So I'm looking at 2027 and I'm like, what I really need to know are who are the guys that they're identifying as we have to have those guys more than anything else. So I rated every position out. First thing I had to do is go through the roster, throw out all the seniors, get rid of guys that I think will probably go off to the NFL. For instance, bye-bye Arch, bye-bye both running backs from the portal, bye-bye Cam Coleman, bye-bye Trevor Gooseby, bye-bye Ryan Wingo. It feels like 2027 is going to be kind of a mass exodus on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to let Texas keep for now Brandon Baker, but no guarantees is what I'm saying. Okay. By the way, let me take a look. Is there anything I'm looking at here? Okay. I think I'm all caught up. I don't see anything I absolutely have to take. No super chats or anything like that. And then there's this conversation of the offensive line. That's kind of where I'm looking at Kennedy Brown, who Texas A&M has decided we have to have that guy. I have heard from people from Kingwood who've told me that Mike Elko is taking that recruitment personally. And recently we saw Steve Sarkisian go to Kingwood too. Kennedy Brown, arguably the best tackle prospect, maybe since Kelvin Banks inside the state of Texas. He's a big deal. He's a priority. Texas has conceded ground there. And I think they're okay with that because I think what Texas feels like is, look, that's going to be one of our guys potentially. And if that's one of our 8, just like with Cam Coleman, we don't really get punked out for our 8. You can punk us out at 9. You can punk us out at 10. But we don't get punked out on our top 8 if that's a guy that we want. So I start thinking about Kennedy Brown and Ishmael Kamara. These are it's a really high-end top of the 2027 recruiting class for Texas. John Meredith is incredible. Cooper Witten, I remember the first time I watched film of him, and I was like, okay, last name, I'm going to be underwhelmed. This is going to be last name thing, right? And then I turned the kid's film on, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. So I love Cooper Witten. So you've got 5, 6 guys that are all national top 25, top 30 guys, but offensive line and specifically offensive tackle next season in this recruiting class, there are for me 3 areas of the team that you would say are DEFCON 1 level crisis needs in this recruiting class. Offensive tackle, there's a really good chance that Texas loses both offensive tackles to the draft. There's nobody in the program that you can absolutely say that's a future starting tackle at the University of Texas. So they're going to need 2 starters in 2027 somehow, some way, and they got to get some young talent in the program. I think wide receiver also counts, as Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo are gone. You're going to need, let me put it to you like this. For all the talk about Easton Royal, the wide receiver from Louisiana that's committed to Texas, top 10 player in the country right now, there's all this talk of like, well, and I've done it. I'm guilty of this. So it's not like, don't let this comment be, all these other guys around the industry are saying all this crap. No, I've said this. Say, oh, watch out for LSU. Lane Kiffin's not going to let that kid get out of the state. Just wait, right? Wait till LSU does its money thing with an in-state kid. Maybe that happens. But here's what I would say about Eastern Royal and University of Texas. Number one, he's going to be one of those 8. Texas doesn't typically get punked out on high school recruits if they just decide that they're going to want. They don't get them all. They didn't get Michael Fasusi. What? Because they didn't put the biggest offer on the table. The Texas fans oftentimes talk about Texas as if it doesn't throw its weight around the way they want Texas to. They do. They have. They figured it out. They figured it out. They weren't 2 years ago. They are now. Now, the issue is, I think Texas is so confident in the, hey, man, we're just going to pull our wallet out. And when we pull our wallet out, then you'll listen closely. No, it's the Derek Cooper thing. Derek Cooper, is Texas in your top 5? Nope. 2 weeks later, is Texas in your top 5? Yep. You know when it really matters? At that moment. That's when you got to be a great recruiter. That's when you got to close the deal. But like Texas found out with Derek Cooper that what happened in the first 12 months of his recruitment didn't matter. What happened in the last month did. And if you are the type of school that is the reputation of Texas with the checkbook of Texas, then you can maybe play the game different than everybody else. And I think Texas with Kennedy Brown has conceded some territory. And I think Texas feels like in a couple of months, when push comes to shove, watch us cook. So I think Texas is going to be in it for Kennedy Brown, even though nobody will put Texas in its top 2 right now. But I think I even had somebody last year tell me that, like, look, Texas will get Kennedy Brown. Over my dead body will Texas not get Kennedy Brown. Now, look, maybe it doesn't go down that way. And I think it's really curious because one of the things that has happened in recruiting today is that Steve Wiltfong at On3 put in a Fong bomb. He put in a future cast or whatever they call it. Is it a future cast? What do we do now for On3 and Rivals? I don't know. Whatever, the prediction business. He made a prediction. He's forecasting Brian Swanson, an offensive lineman, offensive tackle from South Oak Cliff to Texas. I love Swanson, by the way. I have him ranked higher than anybody in the industry. I've got him as a state top 10 kind of a guy. He's in my gold tier, which would be national top 70 to 150. He's kind of a consensus. I think the Rivals industry number on him is 250 or 240-ish, something like that. I think he's above that. But what would be interesting is if that kid does commit to Texas, I'm curious if he's one of their 8, because that dude's going to cost some money, but he's also probably a 2 or 3 year project. Offensive line recruiting is just all kinds of fascinating because it's so complicated. One of the things that we talk about with Kennedy Brown and Kamara is the thought process. Those guys cut to the front of the line. They could be able to start immediately, or they need a year of growing pains. But Texas would like both. And if you're Texas football, and if offensive tackle is your number one most urgent need going into the next season, and it will be, unless unless Melvin Siani gets hurt or Gooseby would get hurt in a way that they would miss so much that they'd have to come back. And then what does that mean for the season, right? You're cutting your nose off to spite your face if to get one of these tackles to come back, they have to have a bad year, because Texas isn't good enough on the offensive line right now that one of these tackles cannot be NFL good. So those guys go, they have to be replaced. There are 2 legitimate 5-star offensive tackle prospects from the state of Texas in this class, and it doesn't include Brian Swanson, who's a notch below that. So there's this question. Could you realistically take Kennedy Brown and or Ishmael Kamara in a recruiting class together? Because if you do, What is the combined cost of those two guys? I mean, I was having this conversation with Jason Sukumel earlier today, and I said, hey, for Kamara, 2.5 million per year over and under. What do you think? Jason took the under. I'm kind of on the over. One of the real interesting things that we've not seen in recruiting yet in this NIL era, which NIL transitioning into revenue share era, where the conversations about money are even more out in the open than they've ever been before. It was weird when it was just NIL with no revenue share. It was like, oh, well, we can't officially talk to you about money. And now it's like, okay, we can talk to you about money. Let's talk money. Texas and Texas A&M haven't truly, there hasn't been an Anthony Hill type recruitment since the revenue share began between these two schools, where Texas goes over my dead body, and then Texas A&M goes over my dead body. Because what happens when two schools in state in recruiting decide on an in-state guy, he's an over my dead body kind of a guy? We've not seen that happen. I wonder what it would have looked like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when Anthony Hill was a prospect. Because that was really one of the first. Texas took Texas A&M's cornbread, and one of the ways they did it was they came correct when it came time to make a financial offer. His NIL was good, better than A&M's, point blank. It's how they made that happen. But it hasn't happened every year like you'd think it would. I mean, KJ Edwards, Texas duked it out for, but at the time, Texas was preferring Xavier Crowell to KJ Edwards. So when KJ Edwards made his decision, Texas hadn't really gone all in big on. There's a world out there where if the timing of running back decisions had gone differently, KJ Edwards might have gotten paid. Like with a cap, like all caps, every letter in the word paid. And I think he still did. But when he made his decision, Texas was targeting Crowell. Like that was their guy. And they thought they were going to get, I don't know if they fully thought they were going to get Crowell, but they thought they had a really good chance of getting Crowell. He ends up committing to Alabama. And that followed after KJ Edwards made his decision. And so you were just left in a position where at first it looked like, oh crap, running back is one of these DEFCON 1 positions a year ago. And now all the guys are gone. What are you going to do? Well, what Texas decided to do is they got in on Derek Cooper's recruitment. They cut to the front of the line. Well, how do you do that? Well, you pay to cut. You ever been at the club? You ever walked up to the guy? There's a New York City line outside. You either know somebody or you pay somebody. There are two ways to make this happen. Texas is, I think, comfortably in the, well, we'll cut to the front of the line. How will you cut to the front of the line? Well, we don't know anybody. So what do you think? And that's kind of what Texas is. And I'm, as someone who covers them on a recruiting basis, I can figure them out now. But on this offensive lineman thing, it gets to be tricky. Could you realistically have $5 million tied into annually for 3 years? So $15 million over 3 years committed to 2 offensive linemen, where the math says that only one will hit at a high level. Could you start either or both in 2027? If you've got $5 million invested, you'd have to. So can you take 2? Would you still have to go to the portal and get experience because you don't even know, you won't even have seen these guys in a practice, in pads, and you're deciding they're starting as true freshmen? They're not all Kelvin Banks. Sometimes they're DJ Campbell, and they can't beat out Cole Hudson. Sometimes that happens. It is a question. It's rhetorical at this point. Unless the answer is just no, and it might be. But I don't think anybody wants, I don't think A&M, I don't think Texas, I don't think anybody that wants both of those guys wants to make that concession yet. And then there's just a part of me, though, that from when I put my general manager hat on, I'm like, how does that work? $5 million on two guys. You have to play them, right? You can't have $5 million offensive line dollars just sitting on the bench. I mean, I guess you could. You really would be in the rich people club at that point. You are in a different status of, you're like the Dodgers at that point. If Texas can get to a point, 2 years ago, I had people telling me like, yo, we got to push the Texas One Fund like it's nobody's business. We need more donations. We need more money. We don't have it all covered. Now we're talking about Texas going into a season with $5 million in freshman offensive linemen after the Brandon Baker situation unfolded. It's just, I'm not telling you that's not the right answer. I'm telling you it's complicated. I'm telling you that roster construction in the current age of college football is more fascinating than it's ever been before. It takes really smart people, and they're going to get it wrong. All of this is a pseudoscience. You're trying to science up a bunch of junk science. And all you can do is the best you can do, but you're going to miss. You're going to have some C.J. Baxters. You're going to miss on some guys. The key is to hit more than you miss. And if you do that, you're going to be pretty good if you're getting a lot of these guys. So now we're back to the offensive line discussion. And one of the things, real quietly, there's no way that Texas can get Brian Swanson and both of these offensive linemen. There's no way. So either they get a commitment from Swanson and then they don't plan on like giving this kid a lot of money, at which point I think he's going to get some big financial offers elsewhere. So it's funny that I'm doing the Kamara Kennedy Brown discussion today, because today's the day that we see Brian Swanson get a prediction to go to Texas from Wiltfong, who typically doesn't put in predictions. And Swanson's been pretty open. I think he recently told Sukamel he's only planned one official visit. I mean, he's letting us know. So Brian Swanson's going to commit to Texas. Will he stay at Texas? We'll see. But to me, you can't take Brian Swanson's commitment and then think you'll probably go out and get the other two guys. So then it's Kennedy Brown, Ishmael Kamara. It feels like Texas has chosen Kamara. He's the guy they've not let ground slip on. He is a little bit of the freakier natural athlete. Like he's got some, like, we don't see this type of athletic ability in the big guy stuff very often, once a decade type stuff. But Kennedy Brown's probably the better left tackle football player right now. I mean, he's not as physically impressive as Kamara, but he's a dope football player. He's really, really good. I mean, there's a reason why Rivals has him ranked number 4 overall in the country right now. And Kamara's only at 32. He's a 5-star, but I think, or he's just outside 5 stars. I'd have to go look. Maybe he's a high 4-star for Rivals right now if they haven't given out that many 5 stars. I think he'll get 5-star status. And I think when it's all said and done, he'll be a national top 10 prospect. I think the nation, even as high as he's ranked, is sleeping on him a little bit. But at some point, Texas will have to make a choice. It does feel like Kamara is the guy that they've most actively been from beginning to end on. But I keep hearing whispers that, yo, watch. Gonna make a move with Kennedy Brown. They know they've not been recruiting that kid as urgently as history would say they would need to. And can the wallet make up the difference? In 2026, Texas believes the answer is yes. That's not to say they're not trying at all, but they have not tried to recruit Kennedy Brown as hard as Texas A&M has. Period. I mean, I've had people inside the Texas program tell me that. So, and I don't think it's like, oh, well, Kyle Flood's just being lazy. I don't think that's it. I think this coaching staff, via the direction of its head coach, has altered, and this has been in the making since they arrived. One of the things that the Texas staff, when they showed up, and a lot of them came from Alabama, and they showed up at Texas, they could not believe how the recruiting clock at Texas never turned off. There's like no room for anybody to take a break. Camp here, junior day here. Even when you weren't holding camps, kids were just showing up on campus, wanting to take visits. It's like, well, what are you going to do? A national top 25 guy just showed up. Well, one of the Texas things Texas decided was, well, we're just not going to jump because people say we have to jump. So what happened a year ago? They didn't do as many junior days as everybody else. And people like me commented on it. And I didn't say it is the end of the world. I just called it out for what it was, which was Texas doing less events, less junior days, less. This past year, part of it was schedule related. Sarkisian's been pretty open and honest about the fact that they didn't get a lot of recruits in on campus last year. They didn't have any home games for a month and a half. So they missed a window to get a lot of these 2027 kids on campus. Texas wasn't as actively, aggressively pursuing them with in-campus visits. And Mike Elko is apparently being seen like every day at Kingwood High School. It just felt like that's the sense you got about how big of a priority they were making them. And I think I think Steve Sarkisian has figured out, maybe earlier than anybody, well, this is how you do it when you do it with money. And if you're not going to do it with money, you can work your ass to the grindstone for 18 months and you're not going to get that kid. Look at Derek Cooper. There were schools that committed that kid for 24 months like their lives depended on it. And Texas just cut to the front of the line on a busy Saturday night at the most popular club in town because it decided it didn't want to pay a cover fee, and it didn't, or it would pay any cover fee, but it wasn't going to wait in line. And that's what they did. So Texas is going to do that with one of these guys. It will happen. Texas will get one of these guys. They're going to money whip him. Then it's, do you try to do it with two? Could you even do it with two? Is it too risky to do it with two? But what I will say is, other than quarterback, given an offensive lineman that kind of cash is the riskiest thing in all of college athletics right now. It's just a position that's vulnerable to mistakes being made, to injuries being more serious with, a bad guy. A big guy gets an injury to his legs, to his back, to his shoulders, to any of that stuff, and it just seems to bother those guys more so than a 180-pound wide receiver. Wide receiver comes back from an ACL injury, and it feels like, oh, that guy's out running routes after 5 months, and you're just like, you can't believe it. But then you're like, oh, well, he's a freak athlete, and these freak athletes will do freak athlete things. Adrian Peterson, kind of a prime example, right? Like sometimes these dudes just not of earth. But then these big dudes, they get hurt. And I think we're looking at it right now with a guy like Andre Kojo. He got hurt last year. He has complete knee rebuild. My expectations for Andre Kojo this year, now look, the coaches will tell you something different because they have to. They don't have a lot of bodies right now. So they can't, if they come out and say, we have to treat Andre Kojo like he's found money, and if he gives us anything, that's a win. But we really need to think that he's a 2028 guy. That's when we'll see the best version of himself. I have low expectations that anytime close, we're going to see the best version of Andre Kojo. And I don't even know what that is. Like the best version of Andre Kojo, I don't know that that's a starting level quality player at the University of Texas. I don't even know if that guy can play as a reserve. We never found out. That's what last season was going to be. We're going to find out. Hell, maybe he plays at left guard instead of Nick Brooks. We never found out. Maybe he's worse than Nick Brooks. We never found out. He was going to lose that tackle job to Brandon Baker. What his role was going to be beyond that, we didn't know. But he gets hurt. Now, look, he's not a five-star, but he gets hurt and like the rules change. I look at that and go, in 24 months, that guy's got to be the best version of himself. I almost don't think 12 months is possible. It's possible, but it's not bankable. it has to be treated like maybe not found money, but it has to be something that you don't plan for. It's something that is it happened and fantastic. UT guy, am I wearing a robe? No, man, it's like a sweatshirt. It's not a hoodie because there's no hoodie, but it's not a robe. Look, it's not a robe. It looks like a robe. I guess if all you see is a button. No, I don't know. It's like a sweatshirt thing, but it's not a sweatshirt. I don't know. It's comfortable. Stop. Harry says, what's the price if you don't get both? Well, then, can you go find a Derek Cooper elsewhere around the country? Can you go get another 5-star level guy? The price at that point, if you don't, is that you probably have to you have to get 2 starting tackles out of the 2027 portal. Now, look, not impossible. If Trevor Gooseby had gone pro, I think the Seton kid that goes to LSU ends up at Texas. And then Seton and Siani are your 2 tackles, and you're cool. But that's probably what it would mean. And then what it would mean is now you got to go back and you're doing in 2028 the thing that you were having. You're just repeating. You're just kicking a can down the road. You'd have to hit it out of the park in the portal, which can happen, but there's no guarantee on the box. And it really puts a lot of pressure that, like, man, you better stick to landing in January better, because there really aren't a lot of we just don't know about Kojo. Jaden Chapman's not coming off of an injury, but we still don't know with him either what he is. Can he play? Because if he could play, why didn't they play him last year? And I don't mean at left tackle. I mean, it was all hands on deck. And what we know they didn't do with any of that left guard solution was think so much of Jaden Chapman that they were like, well, he's one of our best 5. We have to get him on the field. Who do we move around? Do we move Brandon Baker to left guard because we have to get our best 5 on the field and Jaden Chapman's one of our best 5? They did not. That never happened. He played like 20 snaps all season. So it's hard to like look at what's on campus and think to yourself, oh yeah, no, in 2028, 3rd team all SEC, just watch. Maybe, but like they can't plan on that. They didn't do that this year. This year, they were like, we better go get Melvin Siani. And they were trying to get the Michigan guys and trying to get all the guys. And ultimately, Harry, the answer is like they are behind the 8 ball on the offensive line. The good news is that when you look at the long-term future of the program, the defensive side of the ball is set. You keep collecting great prospects and great players, but there's no position that feels like defensive tackle felt last year, the year before that. Money B says we can probably get 3 high school offensive tackles for $2.5 million total. Now, Money B, what offensive tackles are you talking about? I mean, you go get 3 Brian Swansons, yes. You're not getting Kennedy Brown or Ishmael Kamara for less than 2.5 each. That's what I believe. That's what I believe. Because the competition for those guys is going to be, the price of doing business is not going down. Not yet. It's not yet. And, it just comes down to these guys want to turn their recruitments into bidding wars. All it takes is 2 to tango. And when it comes to Texas and Texas A&M, they've not tangoed very much. And maybe that doesn't happen here. Maybe one kind of backs out of one recruitment versus the other. This is what we would do in recruiting. This is what we would see all the time. Example. Forgive me for this old ass example, okay? Forgive me for the 20-year example that I'm about to give you, but it is one of the most famous examples of what I'm talking about. In the 2004 recruiting class, AKA the Adrian Peterson year, it was also AKA the Rhett Bomar year. And one of the things that you have to do when you're recruiting quarterbacks, man, is they all have to feel like you're their number 1 guy or girl, whichever. So Texas decided they wanted Rhett Bomar. Oh, they wanted Rhett Bomar. They wanted Rhett Bomar so bad, they literally didn't contact any other quarterbacks at all. They were engaged and married before they ever went on a date with that kid. So they infamously didn't recruit Stephen McGee. They infamously, maybe most infamously, didn't recruit Kirby Freeman, who was the younger brother of a guy named Colby Freeman, who was also a big-time recruit many, many years ago. Neither of these guys ever really did anything that's worth remembering, except for this. Kirby Freeman notoriously cursed Mac Brown out or said something really mean to him. Like Mac Brown called after Rhett Bomar commits to Oklahoma and it's like, hey, we're here. And Kirby Freeman was like, yeah, you're here after I have decided that y'all are not here. And I'm going to go to Miami. And he let him know under no uncertain words that like he didn't appreciate being treated like he was treated. What did A&M do? They went after Stephen McGee. They told Stephen McGee, we don't even like Rhett Bomar. We think you're better than Rhett Bomar. And to be fair, he ended up being better than Rhett Bomar. Much to my chagrin, 4th round pick of the Dallas Cowboys. But they go all in on Stephen McGee. They cleared out the paint for each other. Texas mistakenly went all in for Rhett Bomar and missed. A&M astutely observed, we're not getting Rhett Bomar. We'll go get Stephen McGee, and we'll tell him we think he's our Rhett Bomar. And that worked. One of the things I'm really interested in watching with these offensive linemen, and I wonder if Texas A&M people would just disagree with me here. You know, if we had Lucci on, if we had Jason Howell on, somebody like that. If Texas prioritizes Kamara and A&M prioritizes Kennedy Brown, and they both just decide that's our one, I wonder if there would almost be an acknowledgement from the other because you're not getting them both, I don't think. Money B says we can get the offensive line class for $2.5 million total. I just don't see it. I don't. Not if we're talking about the level of guys that we're talking about. Now, if we're dropping down again, like Brian Swanson, he's going to be a national top 100, 150 guy when it's all said and done. You can get 3 guys like that. You just have to know those guys probably aren't going to play until 2029. One of the reasons why you're trying to spend this much money on Kamara and or Kennedy Brown is because you think those guys will play earlier, a la Kelvin Banks. And to be fair, a la DJ Campbell. DJ Campbell did play for 4 seasons for Texas, even if he probably never lives up to his 5-star ranking. But, you know, you get Kelvin Banks is a freak. He and Connor Williams are the only 2 Texas offensive linemen in the last 20 years that have started as true freshmen and been good. It is not usual. So one of the reasons why I don't think you can go get Kennedy Brown and Kamara is that if you were forced to play both of those guys, you just throwing the 2027 season away in a lot of ways. There's just no guarantee that if you put that heavy of an investment, if they decide one of those guys is their alpha and they can get him and they say he starts for us in year 1, it's a gamble, but you can probably protect yourself against that gamble. If you make that gamble and you've got twice the financial outlay on those 2 guys and you're saying 40% of our offensive line is going to be manned by guys that have never played in a college game before or before the end of the season's over, that's who we'll be depending on. I mean, I just don't quite know what that looks like. It sounds way riskier than but the payoff would be if you just think 2027 is going to be a rebuild. And I'm not so sure that, I mean, it kind of depends on what Texas does in the portal. If they kill the portal next January, it doesn't have to be a complete rebuild. But it's a season where they're going to be changing quarterbacks and maybe their entire offensive line. Rebuild. Maybe a baby one. That's what last year ended up being, whether or not anybody ever wanted to call it a rebuild or not. There was massive turnover at quarterback in the offensive line, in addition to wide receivers and tight end. It was a rebuild. That's what 10-3 turned into. It was a rebuild. Hey, Sark, you missed the playoffs. What happened? Well, it turned out more of a rebuild than we thought. Touche, coach. Well, 2026 isn't a rebuild. It's kind of a reload. 2027 is a different ball game altogether. I could actually buy if Texas were to compete, not even win, right? Because that's really hard to say. But if you're making a run in 2026 and you're telling me that that's the end of a cycle, there's going to be a quarterback change. If Texas makes the playoffs, it's probably as a 2-loss team that it might have a rebuild feel for it. I'll listen to a Kennedy Brown, Ishmael Kamara double duo, 2 freshmen starting year 1, because it is the only real way to get like top of the first round quality talent, barring Jordan Seaton type situations unfold. And that's not going to happen every year. Kelvin Bankses are hard to find. If you're going to find them, you're going to get them in high school football recruiting more times than not. And whatever we want to say about Jordan Seaton, that dude ain't Kelvin Banks. So you want to go try to get a Kelvin Banks type guy. You pay for the sins of the season of growing up, the way Texas did with Arch a little bit this year. Quite frankly, kind of like the way they did with a lot of guys this year. Ryan Wingo among them. They had to grow up through that, right? Figure out how to use them. Anwar and I did a Monday Overreaction show earlier today, and it was like, how did it take Sark 2/3 of the season to figure out how to use Ryan Wingo? It's like, well, sometimes it goes that way. And at which point it's like, touche again. By the way, real quick, I need to, usually Chad pushes the buttons, and I just got to make sure that, where are we at here? Where's my Specs spot? Specs! Where are you, Specs? Can't be the Valentine's Day one. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to have to, Specs. I love you, Specs. Specs is a proud sponsor of the chat. Everybody's chatting away right now. I owe you a spot. I just can't find it. My bad. I do want to point out also our title sponsor, the amazing people at Texas Card House. They are the presenter of the show. Go to Hijack Poker, download the app. You can play anywhere inside the state of Texas, real poker, anywhere on your phone for cash, tournaments, cash games, you name it. And of course, they have all the locations all over the place. I need to get back to the spring location. Sonny and I may be having lunch tomorrow at the Card House Social in Austin tomorrow. Don't just show up asking for autographs, but I can't wait to get back to the Card House. Amazing sponsor. So I was not going to forget to pay the bills. I was literally about to push the ad. It was on my brain. I didn't realize I'd been talking for 45 minutes, though, without stopping to breathe or anything. But Chris Bennett says Cristobal leaving Oregon got his banks. It didn't hurt. It's a little bit like that Saban to Texas thing. Ultimately, there's a decision that has to be made that was never made, and we'll never know. What happens if Cristobal stays at Oregon with Texas? They were going to try. They thought they were going to give it a good old college run. But yeah, man, Cristobal doing a thing. Money B says, it's hard for me to put my confidence. We're in the Specs chat, by the way, since, I can't do the Specs thing because I can't figure out the ad. And there's a lot of ads in there. There's 19 AV consultation spots. And I'm just afraid if I push one, it's going to be the wrong spot. And yes, Bomar did become a verb. Stephen McGee, the better player. Rhett Bomar. Although, couldn't we say that Stephen McGee also turned into a verb? For instance, hang with me here. For you young guys, I'm going to teach you something. I'm going to teach you a little bit of history. Getting Bomard, that is what happens when you get completely decleated and almost knocked unconscious in a Texas OU game, right? Brian Robinson, Bomard, Rhett Bomar. When you get Stephen McGee, that's when you get hit so hard that you've got a concussion and you mosey over to the opposing sidelines and talk crap while you're getting your ass kicked by 4 touchdowns while suffering a concussion. That's getting McGee'd. That is what being Stephen McGee means. If somebody goes, oh my God, he pulled a Stephen McGee. What did that mean? It means he just got concussed, probably by Sergio Kendall, or Sergio Kendall Jr. And then he was so concussed, he forgot the score of the game and like walked over and started verbally taunting the guy that just gave him a concussion because, Stephen McGee. Anyway, I think it was 2009, though, was where the smack talking took place. Maybe not. 09 was a closer game. So it was 08, wasn't it? God, yeah, it was at DKR. You're right. Still cracks me up. And look, Stephen McGee beat Texas a couple of times, so it's not like he was a complete scrub or anything. 06 happens, 07 happens. Stephen McGee plays in the NFL, but Sergio Kendall took 5 years off his life with that play. If you've never seen the hit that Chris, find a way to find it. Find it. Put it on socials. If we can find when Sergio Kendall took 5 years off of Stephen McGee's life, put that on social media. Kids, if you haven't seen it, it's not quite Tony Bracken's taking 5 years off John Malkovich's life, but it's up there. It's up there. When it's over with, you're just like, oh, that took a while to recover from, didn't it? Probably, yeah. Anyway, excuse me, Sandman. The greatest living A&M historian, moi, forgot Jared Johnson. How could we forget? Wait, so Steve McGee was class of 04. Yeah, okay. So 8 was it. Okay. Oh, see, look at that. Chris says he found it. That's UT guy. He didn't disappear. I think he earned his pension with the Cowboys. He played 3 or 4 seasons, right? Hold on. I don't know that he went anywhere after the Cowboys, but he was a 4th-round draft choice. Like those guys, he made it about as far. So he went 09, 10, 3 years with the Cowboys. And then he spent a season on the Texans practice squad. He went in the 4th round with a 101 overall pick. The Cowboys just took him too early. He was a 5th, 6th, 7th year player. You know what's funny is, God, I met Stephen McGee and Jordan Shipley at a camp at Pflugerville Conley that Sean Adams and I put together in the spring of 2003. God, it was a long time ago. It's interesting meeting the babies when they're babies. Lima Swede came to that event. I want to say we only had like 15 guys show up, but I think 7 of them played on Sundays. So not a bad crowd considering it was the first combine camp thing that Sean and I ever put together. And we had a good list considering nobody showed up except for future NFL players, as it turns out. Stephen McGee, Lima Swede, I can't try to remember. Jonte Buell was there. There were a number of guys. Anyway, look, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Money B says that Chris Bennett always comes through in the clutch. Indeed. And Chris is right, too. McGee, somehow we turned this into a McGee Shipley deal, all because somehow Stephen McGee popped into my head. Because he was the example for what Texas has to do with the offensive line. There will be a point, and I will stop the presses when it happens. When we go, one of these 2 schools has made their decision on who their guy is going to be. And then when the other one does the same, will they be the same guy or will they be different? The smart money says they should both make like a handshake agreement. Mike Elko and Sark just need to meet in Dime Box or Columbus or I don't care, Brenham. Bobby Burton once had me in with the guys at Aggie Websider. I think it was Tarpley, if I remember correctly. We had to meet at a Jack in the Box 20-something years ago. I don't know. We were shit talking each other about something. And, I was right, and they were just being silly Aggie Websider guys. But I had to go meet at a Jack in the Box. If you can think of the Jack in the Box, had to be in Brenham. I drive by it all the time when I'm coming to Austin. So it'd be the Jack in the Box in Brenham. We had a earlyrivals.com powwow where Bobby was like, catch, leave them alone. Aggie, stop being stupid. We were like, okay. That's kind of what happened. If anybody wants to go ask Bobby about that on his show today, I don't know. I think he does this stuff earlier. Yeah, don't bother Bobby. I wonder if he even remembers us going to Jack in the Box, though, to have our little meet. What I'm saying is Sark and Elko need to go meet at the Jack in the Box. It worked once. At the Jack in the Box in Brenham. They need to sit down. Sark can talk first. Mike, You guys really like Kennedy Brown, don't you? You've been there a lot. Catch won't stop talking about it. Well, yeah, I do have kind of a soft spot in my heart. Really want to get that guy. I know what you mean. I know what you mean, Mike. I feel the same way about Kamara. He's our Kennedy Brown. He's your Kamara. Let's do this. It'll save us money, right? Let's just handshake agreement. We'll stay away from Kennedy Brown. We won't drive the bid up on you. You got to stay away from Kamara. Okay? Go deal with Oregon on Kennedy Brown. Let us deal with everything else. We both get our guys. Kumbaya. Everybody wins. Let's leave Jack in the Box with like a taco and go. That's what needs to happen. They need to go meet a Jack in the Box. And those two guys need to come to an agreement. Let's not C block each other on you want one, we want one. Let's just make sure that we end up with one. You get yours. Who do you want? Kamara? Cool. Brown? Cool. Handshake agreement. Go get your guys. Cotton? Thrall feels a little too A&M-ish. Brenham still even feels like a bridge too far. I went there because I'm a good person. I'm a better person than the guys for the Aggie Websider. And so I went further with my drive than they were asked to go. Although, Tarpley may have been coming from Dallas, at which point, I forget where he lived. Crap. It may be that he's a better human being than I am, which would terrify me. But at the same time, if I'm judging that based on how far we each drove for this meeting, crap, I may not win that one unless it wasn't Tarpley. It wasn't Zepeda. God, I never would have met that guy in Jack in the Box. Yeah, I think that's right. It wasn't Sandhop either. No, it had to have been Tarpley. Anyway, that sounds my life. Just y'all have no idea. Y'all don't. Anyway, Thorndale. Okay, you know what? I'm okay with that. We've seen we had a dime box from Rex. Cotton. I'm okay with Thorndale. Who once upon a time, God, what was that guy's name? Twan Simmons. Oh my God, I just pulled that out of my ass. Hold on. I don't even know. Back in the day, I had to look this up. When was the last time I said his name? Twan Simmons. Thorndale High School. Class of 95, 96. God, I'm old. He was a great high school football player, though, for Thorndale. They won back-to-back state championships. I think he was amazing. And if Twan Simmons is out there or any of his family members or friends, you're like, oh my God, I was listening to Orange Bloods today and they freaking said Twan's name out loud. That's what I do. I bring generations together by randomly saying names from 30 years ago. I don't even remember the last time I said his name, but you said Thorndale and Twan Simmons popped into my head. Oh, William Henderson says the Snook cemetery, good things happen to us there. There's a place in Snook after the 05 game that I went to with Sean Adams that serves chicken fried bacon. Check that place out. It'll give you a heart attack, but you'll go out with a smile. All that gravy on that chicken fried bacon. Don't say that the people at A&M aren't good for anything. They've come up with some creations now. They get stoned and get the munchies in Snook just like they do everywhere else. And on that note, guys, for myself, for Texas Card House, hold on. I couldn't find the damn ad, but surely here it is. Download the bad boy right here. Hijack Poker. Sign up and get the $20 bonus. Scan that. It's been a couple of weeks since I played on my phone. Mainly because I had an operations there with my phone the last time, but that's okay. Matter of fact, I might just do that tomorrow or the next day. I'm going to get into the noon tournament at Hijack. I'm going to get the noon tournament and I'm going to win the tournament while doing an Orange Bloods live show. Or I'll go out in the first set of blinds. I'm not sure. Either could happen. But yeah, it's been too long. I need to get some money and make it happen. For myself, because there was no Chad Hastings today. By the way, hold on. See, I got to get used to pushing the buttons again because I like did that and then that's got to come up. There's just a lot of buttons to push for myself and only myself. Although Tyler did the thumbnail and the title and put that whole thing up. And Chad, I hope you're having a great time on your little President's day off. Who needed you? I'll just spit game for an hour on recruiting because I'm a psychopath and those things come quite easily for me. Tip your bartender and your wait staff.